On that note, let's talk about Build Back Better. Biden held a press conference yesterday to talk about his first year in office. I would say he's commemorating it, but I don't think that even he is pleased with the job that he's done, because despite the fact that he is an aggressive centrist and a dinosaur of a Democratic politician who has a lot of old school perspectives, he did want to achieve something in his presidency. He didn't want to be a lame duck after year one, which is how it's kind of starting to appear. Build Back Better appears to be dead, and I think it's dead because of Joe Manchin and because Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer did not fully grasp who they were dealing with and did not do a full court press in an aggressive messaging campaign and pressure campaign in the lead up to these negotiations, even though Schumer behind the scenes understood that Manchin wanted to cut it down significantly. They started at $7 trillion. That was Bernie Sanders' proposal, cut down to 3.5, then cut down to 2.2, then 1.8, which...
And like the last ones were done after while a signed document existed saying actually it's 1.7.
Yes, right, or 1.75 or whatever Manchin actually proposed. So all of these negotiations, at least in public, appeared to be, or they tried to portray them as good faith. But in reality, Schumer and Biden pretty much knew behind the scenes, now this is what Manchin wants to do, which is like, why would you set yourself up in that way? There was hope that they could drag him along and that this number was not going to be the thing that he stuck to. They didn't. He cut it down significantly. And then once his proposal was the one that they were going to adopt without the extension of the child tax credit, Manchin was like, actually, I don't want it anyway.
I think they weren't expecting a massive another bout of COVID. And I think I'm kind of convinced that Biden, like, I agree with you that he would have rather have got it passed now, but I also think that they thought they were going to have a super, super strong economy,
yeah,
and be crushing things right now. And people wouldn't be worried about some of that stuff, or it would go down a little bit less bitter than it has now, which is, like you said, like we have rising unemployment. And a couple of weeks ago, only Jen Psaki saying we're not going to pay people to sit on their couch at home, right?
Yeah, sending you tests in the mail, that's ridiculous. Fast forward to the fact that now they have to do it, even though the Omicron wave might be falling off a cliff soon enough, although we are still in the thick of things. But all that said, here is Biden responding to a question from reporters on Build Back Better. And essentially, he has adopted the position that some centrist Democrats in the House who feel that they are vulnerable have taken, that we need to break Build Back Better up just so we look like we're passing something, essentially. Now Biden is on board with that.
Your comment that you made, that you're confident
Yes.
that major chunks of Build Back Better can pass. Are you breaking it up? Does that
Yes. Well, it's clear to me that that we're going to have to probably break it up. I think that we can get, and I've been talking to a number of my colleagues on the Hill, I think it's clear that we would be able to get support for the $500+ billion for energy and the environmental issues that are there, number one.
Can you pause it for a second?
Number two.
Unless that goes through reconciliation, why do you feel that you can get the votes that you need? Because a reminder that the filibuster still exists, and unless a climate bill goes on its own through reconciliation, they'd have to redo this process all over again. The Republicans are going to filibuster it.
Emma, he's talking to his colleagues about it, okay? I mean, what more do you want him to do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad that he has assuaged our fears by telling us tales of water cooler chit-chat.
Yeah, the guy who's surprised by the Republicans' obstructionism somehow is going to be leading this stuff, right?
Somebody who's worked with Republicans his entire career is just shocked that they are who they are. We'll get to that in a bit, but continue.
I know that the two people who've opposed, on the Democratic side at least, support a number of the things that are in there. For example, Joe Manchin strongly supports early education, 3 and 4 years of age, strongly supports There is strong support for, I think, a number of the way in which to pay for these, this proposal. So I think there is. I'm not going to negotiate against myself as to what should.
Real quick, those people support minority rule more than they support those other things. They like to say those support the other things because that's good for campaign literature. But the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah. Continue.
It shouldn't be in it, but I think we can break the package up, get as much as we can now, and come back and fight for the rest later.
You can't do that though, because I don't know why I'm explaining the rules of reconciliation to the Biden. Well, maybe they know this and they just want to look busy, right? It's the equivalent of you're working on a desk job and your boss walks behind you and you pull up an Excel spreadsheet when you were actually on YouTube. That's what he's doing here. Because unless the only way to get these things through, because you're not going to get 10 Republicans on board, is to go through a reconciliation process. And that means you have to do
senators on board.
And that means you have to do one big bill. One big bill. So that is the only solution here. Breaking it up kills Build Back Better. The only thing that's on life support at this point, the only thing that might resuscitate it, is if there is a public campaign against Manchin and even Sinema to this point, where honestly, I would love if universal pre-K passed and we just got a little bit of something, but it is pathetic that we're at this point, and the climate provisions, which are so necessary. So that is the only path forward. And Biden is deluding himself if he thinks that he can now work with Republicans again on smaller provisions to get past a 60 vote threshold. At the same time that he's publicly talking about what are Republicans for? People were giving him a lot of credit. Oh man, Biden's finally taking it to the Republicans. He's not, though, because he's still under the same delusion here if he thinks that he can break up these provisions and pass them independently.
Yeah, and I mean, this sort of veil of not comprehending reality about Republicans, Matt Fuller of Daily Beast tweeted out, "It'd be interesting in my lifetime to see what a Democratic president could do by starting from the assumption that they will get zero help from Republicans to enact their agenda, even the popular elements and needed elements of their agenda." And I mean, I said about that, recognizing reality would compel a confrontation with the moneyed interest in the Democratic Party itself, that everybody who supported Joe Biden over Bernie Sanders. That was the whole point. It was, we don't need to actually confront the party itself. We just need to win and get enough blue bodies in there. And we're seeing the failure of that. And all these people that were getting very solemn about Bernie's theory of change and will it work? Joe Biden's has died right in front of us, and we should take a note to recognize that.
We should, but I mean, how many times have we even seen this? We saw it under Obama too. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The substance of what is done takes a back seat to temporary victories and electoral success and career success for those very people. And amazingly, the press buys that too, because they're as protected and inundated in many ways.
And Manchin and Sinema are going to get what they want, because when Biden has to sell these achievements, the bipartisan infrastructure package, that's going to create the sort of voter turnout that Manchin and Sinema like the people that, not like these people who are grasping for the extra $2,000 in Georgia. Those people are inconvenient. It's going to be those people who actually are excited about bipartisan infrastructure, which is to say not very many, and they're probably going to get creamed. But where they win, it's going to be, I mean, it's cultivating a certain type of moderate turnout, I think.
And I'm always yes-anding you, but that's exactly what the Democratic donor base now consists of. And they have made a conscious effort, and Biden is an example of this as the president. They've made a conscious effort. We are going to pivot to upper middle class suburban voters in certain areas because it helps us financially, and because we don't necessarily need to do a ton. We can... those kinds of people are very sympathetic to something like let's restrict gun rights. We're not going to do anything about it because that would require some filibuster rule changes, but we're going to fundraise off of it, and then we'll take the emotion of those kinds of people and parlay it into career success for us, independent of what we're going to deliver for people. And so, just to bring it back to Build Back Better here, do not listen to these centrist Democrats, corporate Democrats, in these purple-ish districts, because these kinds of people are likely to lose regardless of whether or not Build Back Better is broken up and they can say, look at what I got done. They're going to lose anyway. The best chance to actually get something done for people and deliver a tiny, tiny sliver of what is necessary is to keep it intact to at least some degree and pass it through reconciliation.